Welcome.
We're at the Indianapolis 500.
We're having our leaves blown, if you
Yeah,
can hear that.
yes,
It'll stop.
it stopped. All right, we live, Lauren? Yes. Hi, it's Monday. I'm Jeff Pulver together with Monty and Amy, and if it's Monday, you know it's time for.
Ask the oracles.
That's right. And today we have a special guest joining us. And before we start the show, though, officially, I'll have to ask Amy, Monty, how was your week? I apologize, I was a little tied up last week. How's the week been for you? How was your holiday?
It's been good because I had the big show, then the big show came down, and we had a book signing. You know, our Enchanted Worlds was released this week. So you know what we're doing? We're reading a chapter to ourselves each day so that we can fill our hearts with it again and appreciate what we've done. We don't usually do that.
No, this is our favorite book because everything that we've ever done is in here.
And we're having a contest that people can win 3 prints of my work if they buy the book and send us the receipt. You know us in contests when a book comes out.
Yeah.
We got to do something.
And there'll be information in the chat about that. I am sure of it.
Yes. And you guys, we're going to talk about a very interesting subject. It's interesting to us because you've been writing about karma for so many years, since karma cards.
Yes, we've gone from the Indianapolis 500 to heaven. And yes, this is Karma Cards, the latest iteration. It's been out. Oh, thank you very much, Michelle Marie. That's the last iteration. It's been in a lot of different forms since 1988. It has sold over 1 million copies around the world in 18 languages.
And we picked the subject.
Over 1 million copies sold.
Yeah, over.
We're happy to welcome our friend Sheilaa Hite to talk about karma with us. Hi, Sheilaa.
Hi.
Hi, Sheilaa.
Sheilaa. You've been on with us before when we were doing readings for everybody, but today we're just going to sort of try to have an in-depth conversation about karma and all the things that it means, because karma is something that's in so many cultures. I mean, it's in Christianity, it's in the Hindu religion. I mean, it's like the golden rule, right?
Right, yes. Yep, do unto others.
That's right. And we see it in action all the time, and sometimes it's in action unconsciously, but we like to be conscious of it. And it's not a punishment. You know, sometimes people interpret it like the law of attraction, like what you know, you're sick because you made that happen to you. What do you tell people about things like that?
Well, I don't see karma, you're right. I don't see it as punishment. I see it really as balance. Yes. I see that once you become aware of what it is that is imbalanced and you begin to balance it, you don't have to suffer.
That's right.
The suffering comes from this it's in almost every religion that you have to suffer in order to reach some sort of forgiveness from the universe. And that is not so. You have to acknowledge your part in whatever it is, and then you have to balance it with thought, with action, with feelings. And if you do that, then you're standing in a different place with the issue. The issue might still be there, but you're in a different place with it.
That's a good point. And astrology, I know you're an astrologer as well as a tarot expert. Astrology really gives you insight into what the cycles are that you can learn from, that you're in. And sometimes if you catch it before it gets too much of a crisis, right? You can change your karma.
Yes, I firmly believe you can change it. Why have it and be stuck with it if you can't do something about it? It takes great courage. More than strength, it takes courage. Because the first thing you have to do is you have to look at yourself. And you have to acknowledge that, wow, I am not as perfect as my ego would like to convince me I am. And then you have to do, which is sometimes difficult work, in balancing things. That's what rights the wrongs.
You know, the reason I call karma cards is because Edgar Casey, you know, you just said it. He defined karma as meeting yourself. And so that's what it's all about. And it's very appropriate that today we're doing doing this kind of a discussion because Mars, and which is the energy available to our ego, and the planet Neptune, which is the other world, the utopian world, our ideals and spirituality are in a trine aspect. They're almost exact. It's starting to fade now, but Mars trine Neptune, it's the drive to create utopia or the drive to escape, depending on,
Yes.
yeah. And so a lot of people want to escape their karma, and there is, like you say, there are ways to do that.
Well, yeah, there are ways to attempt to escape your karma,
Right.
but there's no escaping your karma.
That's
Right,
right.
exactly.
Well, I mean, we're talking about lessons, right? That I mean, say we do get sick, or we have a crisis, or a divorce, or all those unpleasant, or or a loss. What can we learn from it to grow spiritually? I mean, I guess that's the bottom line. What do you
Yes.
think, Jeff?
I think that Einstein got it right, that if you repeat the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, that's insanity. And I think that when we look toward who we are and we're looking to change, first we accept who we are, and then we're looking to take positive action in our lives, we have to be open to actually doing something differently. And when I look to the karma of from a entrepreneurial perspective and look for opportunities, you all, from my perspective, you have to be open to what can be, and not be closed-minded in terms of what is. And when you start to open yourself up, you can shift, and you can shift it both from a corporate perspective, you could shift it from an individual perspective, you could shift it from a group perspective, but we have to be open to it. If we're closed, if we're talking words but they're only words and they don't have meaning, they're not resonating with our soul, they will have no effect. But when we're true to ourselves and we allow our truth to be spoken, we have an ability metaphysically to do great things. But we have to be true and signed on to that. And I firmly believe that. I've learned that myself. And I do think there are times when we become aware of making the same mistake over and over again, that we have to change. And then when we ignore it, that's on us. And when we change and we get a different result, that's awesome. And when I help other people help to see themselves, that is a hard lesson for them to accept. But once they get past the acceptance stage, it becomes magical, because we can shift, and great things can happen as long as we allow ourselves the possibility of such.
Well, I think we can all help, as counselors, help people to shift and see it from a different perspective, because we can all get stuck in a rut. People get stuck in a rut of victimhood, like, why me? Why can't I get this? Why is this happening to me? Or my parents were so bad to me. But you can shift all that. It takes work. It takes awareness.
And an ability to be vulnerable. There's some people who are very hard pressed, and they don't want to show. They think vulnerability is a weakness rather than a strength, and so they have to solve an issue. And when you discover that being vulnerable actually can be a strength, because you have a better understanding of what's around you. The karma is magical, and there are catchphrases in pop culture that karma is a quote bitch, but it turns out that we are who we are, and we are going to we need to be responsible for our actions. And it's those people who take action, who don't think anything will come back, they're the ones who will learn eventually what that really means. And I think not from a fear perspective, but I believe in kindness. I believe in gratuitous acts of kindness and giving. And I've seen time and time again, by being open and sharing and giving, it introduces more love and light into the world. And there are times when the world needs that, if not all the time.
It truly comes back to you. I mean, I believe that too. And I see, in observing, from the outside, you can see a lot of people are angry or full of hate. I do believe that comes back to them, in different forms. But it's up to that person, right, to want to change, or to see how that's all affecting them. Do you observe that in a way in your readings, Sheilaa, in a particular way in astrology?
Well, when I look at a chart and I interact with a client, I what I see is, I see in the chart that that there's an issue, not necessarily a problem, an issue, and the direction that the client comes towards me from, that direction, whether whether this stuff keeps happening to me or whether they're proactive and they get out in front of, that tells me how they're dealing with it. When a person has to shift how they're dealing, everybody likes doing what they're doing right now because right now works for them. And so why change? But when a person is open to change, and that's where the difficulty comes, and the ego has to become involved, and also the willingness has to become involved. So when I look at karma and I hear people talk about it, and as you said, there's a victimhood to it, there's a courageous warrior aspect to it too. And it's about really meeting what you came here to meet. And you can agree to come here to meet it in a lot of different ways. It's like you and Monty have said, let's meet this with as much joy and fun and creativity as possible. That doesn't mean you don't have those days. It doesn't mean that you always get your favorite parking spot, but you know that regardless of whether you get your favorite parking spot or not, you're not being punished. And there's obviously something in your having to go around the block one more time. There's a gift in that for you.
You definitely
You're
got
muted.
I don't know how that happened.
Amy, you're muted.
Amy.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Sorry, we just wanted to keep the leaf blowers out.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that in relationships, you do feel the karma. I mean, sometimes you meet someone and you've known them karmically for so long, or sometimes even in families, maybe you don't have so much karma with a particular member of your family, but more for another one. I mean, Monty and I feel like we've been together in so many different lifetimes. And somebody said to us the other night, she introduced us and she said, here's a couple that get along 85% of the time. We said, no, it's 100% of the time. Because we put that kind of energy into it and have learned together through all the chapters. And of course, in life, all the chapters aren't so pleasant. I mean, especially loss is the worst experience, and sickness, but that's the sand, right? That shapes the pearl of the relationship. And in ourselves too, when we overcome, I know personally the things that I've overcome in myself, those are my greatest achievements. To learn to deal with anxiety or whatever the challenge that I've presented myself, because I think we do choose it on some level in this incarnation, when we come in.
Well, I don't know if from my perspective, I don't know if I'm looking at it differently. I do feel that we choose to grow in certain ways. We know we come in sort of with a list, a clipboard, a list. These are the things that I need to develop. These are the things that I need to grow beyond. These are the things that I need to grow towards, to become. And we ask for the best, on some soul level, we ask for the best circumstances to produce that result in this lifetime. And maybe some people actually say, oh, I want really crummy parents. Or maybe people just say, you know what, I would like to learn to love myself and be self-sufficient and love others no matter what. And I need everything I can get. I find that people who really need to know about independence and loving themselves generally come into a family that teaches them the complete opposite. And so I looked at that and I said, what it is you deal with it so much, you begin to believe that so much that you are worthless or that you're unlovable or all those things, until one day it gets to be too much. You reach critical mass and everything can change. And it's called an epiphany. And I think everybody's had at least a dozen of those. So when the epiphany hits, you then have the option, wait a minute, I can do something about this. I'm at maximum power, strength, and clarity. Let me do something. And then you go and you take care of it. That is called, to me, that's karma. You didn't come here to suffer. You came here to get that you don't have to suffer and that there are things you can do about it.
That's right. And I guess suffering is so personal. Some people being alone is suffering, and some people losing a limb is suffering. I mean, it's all so relative. And some people you think, oh, they feel sorry for themselves and they have so much, but you can't really judge because it's such an internal process.
Yes.
We once had someone say, when my bank account goes below $8 million, I really lose it. Not needless to say, we haven't had much to do with that person since they said that.
No, their value system is way different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was real for them.
It was real for them and their Corvette collection.
Well, Monty, you said that your Karma deck came out in '88. What was the inspiration to create that to begin with? Like, what was the driving force to bring that your Karma deck to life?
Well, relating to Sheilaa's statements, coming from a shitty family with shitty parents, and I loved astrology so much I would do it at parties out here in the Hamptons, and people would say, "Oh my God, I wish we could have this much fun when you weren't here." And I knew they didn't mean it as the way it sounded, but so I decided to invent karma cards. Somebody had given me these dice, these astro dice.
But beyond that, we used to do the Ouija board. We found a Ouija board in the 1970s, and it said you're going to do karma cards.
Yeah, we have the notes. We have the notes from that time.
Speaking of Edgar Cayce, because we used to get messages from Edgar Cayce, or we thought that's who it was, but that was one of the messages to do karma cards.
Amy didn't know who Edgar Cayce was, and when she had the board, she could do it herself. It started going K and C and K and C
and we got remedies and all kinds of things.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We actually have the notes. They're in a closet that we'd have to battle the spiders to get it out of there, but it's in a closet
right there,
right next to us over there.
And so once you created the deck, though, like back I guess in the late '80s, the appreciation for astrology.
Yeah, people didn't know what karma was, and then the publisher was like, "Why are you calling it karma cards? Because it's about astrology." So because to me, astrology is the same thing. It's meeting yourself.
Yeah,
knowing yourself.
Right, know thyself, and so we had a friend who had a little publishing company. She said, "Come to New Orleans. We'll see if we can sell it."
Well, he had it all on file cards.
Right, I had worked on the movie business, doing it on file
computers,
cards.
People.
Yes, and I had broken out all the meanings of the planet signs and houses into sentence fragments in my brain. It really rewired my brain doing it. And so we came to New Orleans and went there, and she's like, and we're friends to this day. She said, "I'm too small. You really should go around and see if you can find a real publisher." So we walked around, and at the same moment that I was going up to this book packager called Edison Sod Editions and saying, "I got an astrology card game that tells the future," and they were saying, "Well, okay, let's play it," and it gave a good answer. And I asked, "What did you ask?" They said, "We asked if we should do your book." So they said, "Okay." Amy was talking to Stuart Kaplan about doing the Enchanted Tarot, so it was
everything was that easy,
right?
But obviously there was karma with that company, right?
A lot of karma. No, but it's true. What you said about suffering is true. So many religions are into suffering. Buddhism is all based on suffering, because that's what it says. Everything is suffering until you understand. But that's what America is so wonderful about. I know people put down America a lot, but we're the first nation in the world that's like the pursuit of happiness is part of our Constitution.
Yes. And it is a rarity in the world. We actually think when you travel abroad or live abroad, you begin to really notice how the difference. We actually, as Americans, not only think it's a part of our DNA that everybody is supposed to be happy. Right. And that has some really great points to it and some not so great points to it.
Yeah.
Because if you think you're entitled to the happiness, you're not likely to work for it.
Right.
Because there are times when you really do have to pursue it. It's not just going to be dropped off at your doorstep. So
that's a good point.
Well, another interesting thing about karma is back in the 70s, Amy and I got our life readings done by a woman who had come to a hypnotherapist.
She was like Edgar Cayce.
She was, and he had asked every person that he put under for, I want to stop smoking, I want to stop this. He would ask them the questions that Edgar Cayce had been asked. because he was looking to find another Edgar Casey type person. And this one woman got it. And she was able to read people from a distance. And we never met her, but we have her on tape. And she came to him for emphysema and smoking. She never stopped smoking, of course. But she did these readings. And Amy and I were not necessarily the nicest person in the world on all our lifetimes.
So we're making up for that.
We're making, no, exactly. It's like I was a gladiator.
I was a Syrian murderer.
Wait, I think you were a general. I think Amy was Zapata in Mexico.
Okay. Wow.
I-
So I have Zapata and Marlon Brando all connected together. Remember that movie?
oh my
Viva
God,
Zapata?
yes.
Yes.
Well, Marlon Brando was an Aries. I
Yeah.
think he had his moon in Aries too.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
and plus, nobody ever died like Zapata, right? Like with 100 people shooting at him.
Yes. I mean, very dramatic all the way around. With an Aries, you say, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
It's something to have your husband think you were Zapata in a past life.
Right.
Never dull.
That's
Never
romance.
dull. Yeah, yes, uh-huh.
No, but I guess what I'm trying to say is just because we weren't the greatest person in a past lifetime doesn't mean you can't have a good one.
That's the point, right? You learn I mean, Edgar Casey had this theory that he would say in his readings that when we die, we go to one of the planets for the lesson. So say you were deprived of love, so you would end up in Venus, or
Mhm.
you had to learn about restrictions, so you would end up in Saturn. It's kind of a far out idea, but that's sort of the same thing that we're
Just like Ask the Oracles is.
Mhm.
just like Pulveria is. Sheila, did you know that Jeff years ago created his own world,
Meta-universe.
his own meta world?
Oh, Pulveria. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
I'm actually launching something related to that this week. Something brand new, but it's 14 years in the making, and it's futuristic, but at the same time practical. And the backstory is fun, and it's I'm having fun being creative, and at the same time just doing things I had maybe never did before in a meaningful way. I do think, when what one concept I've stumbled upon is that, during our existence here on Earth, that there probably are, I believe there are lessons that we're supposed to learn or relearn or re-experience and get it right. And that, and once we get that right, then we get to move on to other lessons. And that sometimes when we're stuck or we're helping other people that are stuck, they have to get through their lessons too. And sometimes the lessons to be helped or not to be assisted, they actually have to go through the process alone.
Right. Yes.
And despite our own desire to be helpful, the best thing we can do is to leave them alone, which is sometimes translated into tough love. And there are other things which an assist is possible for, because that assist is received in a meaningful, positive way, and they're open for help. And I think that when people think they are having bad luck, it's really they just have to shift their karma, and they have to allow themselves, rather than to blame someone or something, to be open to maybe it's them, which some people will never admit to, but those who get through it do, and allows them then to shift who they become and how they're seen. And I think that sometimes we're not, when you're young, maybe you don't realize that, but there comes a moment in life when you realize, oh, wow, there's a change that has to happen, and that changes me. And once you get to that stage, everything shifts in a very meaningful, very heartfelt and empowering way.
That's when we're ripe. You have to be ripe for that
Mhm.
change.
Right.
Don't look at me. I showered.
Now, what do you think about there's this trend going around where people criticize people for for toxic positivity?
They can go fuck themselves as far as I'm concerned.
What Monty said. Yes.
I agree, because I know so much more toxic negativity, right? I mean, that's the big problem.
I would like to see someone attack me with positivity. I've been attacked. I've had guns pointed on my face. I mean, people just need shit to say, apparently.
I guess that's what's going on now. Now, astrologically, what do you think the karma is for?
Well, right now we're in the middle of the grips of this Saturn Uranus square, right, Sheila?
Yep, we are. Yep, we're in the midst of that. And we've also got Pluto in Capricorn. And I think that people kind of overlook that. But I think
Oh, no, you're
Pluto in
right.
Capricorn is really, really big about about the karma, and it's including everything, Saturn and Pluto. It's really about our responsibility. We've got to transform down here on planet Earth in all the way throughout our bodies, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We've got to shed the old forms.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's why the Saturn-Pluto conjunction was so powerful. You know, the thing that we all knew was going to be something, we didn't know it was going to be the pandemic, but it coincided with the pandemic, the beginning of it. We're very, very close to the end of even like a mundane astrology size orb of Saturn conjunct Pluto, which was on January 12th, 2020, I think, or was it December 12th, 2019? But it was around that time that Pluto and Saturn were together, and we're just now, maybe in January, February, coming out of the very wide orb that mundane astrologers used for that thing. So that's why we're coming down to variants, you know, like, what do they call it? Omericon? And you could use the same letters from Omericon to spell the word moronic.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, great.
You can. It's an anagram for Omericon is an anagram for a moronic, and it's, I mean, it's also a letter in the Greek alphabet. But
one thing that's gone on, I mean, during the pandemic, we all had time to think, right? To get to know ourselves better.
Yeah.
We were sort of like forced to.
Yeah.
And maybe we bop along and not wanting to change or grow, or like you were saying initially, Sheilaa, until now, bam, we all had this group karma of the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean,
and what are we going to do with it to make it?
Well, I think
positive?
I'm sorry, Sheilaa, you're the guest. You go.
I'm listening, and I'm in agreement with you. We're here now.
Yeah.
That's really, we're here. So there aren't any more excuses. And you still in all, you find plenty of people trying to throw boulders in the middle of the road, trying to hold on to the old, which is, you know, that's another part of human nature that we could do without. But that's what you go through. Those are the choices people get to make here on this planet.
Well, that's a fear of change. And sometimes we don't change until the crisis happens, where we're forced to, because you know, we just feel comfortable with the habitual behavior. But yeah, the old paradigm doesn't apply now. We have to make ourselves feel adventurous.
Yes.
Towards the new, whatever that is, towards the unknown, right? To
Exactly.
have the courage.
But the whole thing is, what people forget is everything's unknown all the time.
Yes.
And we make it up that we know everything. We have calendars now, and we have cell phones, and we've got astrologers. We can know everything. We can not know everything. We can have some great ideas about it. We can say the last time we were here and we shone the light on it, it looked like this.
Right.
And we're back with the same kind of light. Maybe it'll still look like this.
Yeah, it's a percentages game. I think I've told this before, but I once worked on a movie with Gordon Willis, who had won the Academy Award for cinematography. And at the end of every setup, he would say the same thing: "We fooled him again."
Good.
Yeah, because you know he was winging it as much as anybody. Yes, he won the Academy Award, and yes, he was a legend. But
I think truly creative people have that Zen mind, beginner's mind. I mean, there's an innocence and an openness to allow and to be receptive.
Right. And to take risks, because that's what creativity is too.
Yes.
Right. And you
have to sacrifice for creativity. You have to say no. Somebody handed me a book the other day and they said, "I want you to read this." I said, "I'm afraid I don't have time because we're writing so many books." They took offense. But we do that all the time. We say we can't have dinner, because we're working on this book, or people don't like it, but we know it's honest, right?
Yes.
It requires sacrifice. And of course, on a bigger scale, we've all had to sacrifice a lot during this time, but have we? Has it been that big a sacrifice?
Well, not for us, because we're doing the same thing we always do.
I think for a lot of people, right?
But how about for you, Jeff? Has it been a sacrifice, the pandemic?
I think it's a total change of lifestyle. It's been a change of many, many things. And I I do think, with respect, that when you say no to somebody that you can't do something that they want, that they're throwing an action upon you, and you understanding how disruptive it is to you, you're showing yourself self-love and you're being honest and truthful with the person you're talking to. My dad, when he was alive, I used to enjoy for Father's Day getting him gadgets as gifts. So giving him like interesting things. I remember I got him the first ever black and white digital camera back then, and he said thank you, but he says you understand the gift is an obligation, and in my case, you're gifting me, but you're obligating me to learn what you're giving me. that you're pushing upon me something which you're curious about, and you're forcing me to learn it.
You're learning about the Jewish father,
right? But he was being straightforward about it too, in the sense that a gift is a gift, but he was almost hinting I should have bought it for myself. But he took it gracefully nonetheless. And
we're asking you to teach it to him.
What sign was your dad?
My dad's birthday was July 6th. I don't know.
Cancer.
He's a Cancer. Of course, he died of cancer too, but he is a Cancer sign.
Well, they're different cancer. We have a lot of great.
They can dish it out, but they can't take it.
Wait, I have my ruling planet. Well, we have a lot of great astrologers watching us, and one of them just asked, Michelle Marie asked about what we think about the eclipses.
Michelle Marie also was saying in the chat about Vedic astrology, which she practices, that has a lot to do with suffering, understanding the suffering.
Yeah.
Right, Michelle Marie?
but the eclipse we have on December 4th, there's going to be a solar eclipse. And there's something called the Soros cycle, and it's how the shadow of the earth falls on, or the shadow, of the moon falls on the earth. And this one relates to 1967. And so yes, I think the eclipse is going to amplify and reverse the direction that things are going. And I think the end, and also
in a good way. That's what we all want.
I always think it's in a good way, but everybody's like, "You're such a boomer," But I am. I'm like a rainbow pooping, unicorn riding boomer. That's what I do. But Sheilaa really put her finger on something that a lot of astrologers. Actually, she's the only one who said it about Pluto and Capricorn being the issue, because Capricorn's authority, and right now Venus is coming up to be on Pluto, so there'll be some nice obsessive authority coming up. Yeah. I think things are going to get better.
Passive aggressive authority.
Well, look what they're doing. I mean, the whole concept of a lockdown has never been tried in the history of epidemiology. It's and it doesn't work.
Sheilaa, did you know there was because when we talk about the 1967, 68, 69, there was a pandemic?
I was too high to notice.
67, 69, there was?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a Hong Kong flu.
4 million.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, but I didn't know that we were in a lockdown.
No, we weren't. We were passing joints back and forth to each other.
We were like free love.
Oh, I didn't even realize we weren't supposed to do that.
Well, so they estimate between 4 and 10 million people died worldwide. So it was a pandemic like now.
Yes.
And we had Woodstock.
But anyhow, there was no lockdown, no Purell or anything, which is kind of interesting that astrologically we're kind of reenacting that time.
Well, Pluto in Capricorn, getting back to what Sheilaa said, is about authority, and authority has gone nuts. We have the governor of New York State, who instead of being thankful that Cuomo got out of the way and she's the governor, she just declared an emergency on something that the people in South Africa who discovered it are saying is no big deal.
Oh, so
they're power mad. So
Sheilaa, I know you did a little video about the eclipse, but I didn't get to listen. So now can you share some of what you think?
Well, yeah, as far as this new eclipse, now on a personal note, it's this new moon solar eclipse is sitting on my south node, which is in my 12th house, which squares my moon.
Well, that should be interesting.
And I'm going to be in Egypt, where I was sent by Spirit. I've got to be there that weekend.
That's amazing.
It is totally amazing. I'm going, okay. No, I don't know what all this is about. So on a personal note, I'm looking at that, and I'm realizing that when you deal with the nodes and you deal with the moon, you're dealing with karma, and that this is the end of a cycle, because we're going from one set of signs to another set of signs, and it's the end of a cycle. And that literally karmic doors are opening and closing, and that this is an opportunity to shift your perspective, because the old karma can be gone. You have to do, there's a little bit of tuning up you have to do, but basically it's there for us. Your contracts are up. You can create a whole new way, but it has to be intentional, because if you're not intentional, you're still stuck in the illusion that things are the way they were in the past.
Well, that's like, we're always saying innovate or pay the price
Yes.
these days.
It sounds like you're going to Egypt to be consecrated as a priestess. I mean, that's the feeling I get, because, you know, when Jupiter goes into, I know we're talking Western astrology, sorry, Michelle Marie, but when Jupiter goes into Pisces, you're gonna have Jupiter and Neptune, and Jupiter used to rule Pisces back before they knew about Neptune, or it wasn't rediscovered yet. The Sumerians did know about Neptune, but having both of its rulers in Pisces, there's either going to be a spiritual awakening in this world, or not.
Or not, right? So, if whatever it is, it will not be dull.
No, not dull.
And you're talking to a Sag rising person, and that's what we live on. So will it be exciting?
Yes. Well, I think, you know, over the past 2 years of what's been going on in the world, people have so much wanted to get back to the old normal, whatever things were like. Now I think pretty much we know it's not going to be that old way or the old paradigm. So religions are changing, or, you know, so much is crumbling. I think a lot of the medicine, right, it's going to be a new way of approaching that, because they've tried to impose the old way of the big pharmaceutical companies and everything. Not that everything they do is evil, but
no, but a health, as Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, said, "Thy food shall be thy remedy."
The way governments are run, that's going to change. And Jeff, as we know, the money system is going to change.
We all
already changing.
Jeff Pulver for president is what I say. It started right here.
No, but the change is upon us, whether we like it or not, and the shifts are already in place, and it's just a matter of time. I mean, for people who are not familiar, for example, with the way if people think the way the internet is today is the way they're going to experience the internet in 3 years, they're going to be up for a very sudden shift, because we're moving into the third phase of the internet, what's colloquially known as Web 3, and with that comes a systemic change in how information is shared, how we will do commerce, how monetary systems work or don't work, including public policy, and including the power of empowering people to do things which they always could, but perhaps were prevented from. We're now in a place where creators, from the creativity perspective, never before in the history of the internet have we had the chance to create value on the edge as much as we do now. And that's a very subtle shift. I mean, historically, the internet's been centric, focused, not decentralized, where big companies have come out and it's basically company, a product, and then a community. And we're seeing now is a total inversion where it's community first, then products, and then a company. And that changes everything. So for any one individual or any company who thinks they have a strategy in place, and that's the strategy forever, that forever has changed. And so that changes.
That's exciting too, right? It's not so scary. It's scary maybe if you don't understand the lingo or the system.
The nice part is that it's a chance and an opportunity for all generations to get together and create something in unison, that people who've been on the internet who have legacy, it's not like your experience doesn't matter. And the folks who are just coming into the internet today, that's not the way it's always been. And somewhere in between, there's a truth of understanding. And so we can actually do things that we just couldn't do before. And it's opening up these gateways to empowering dreams to happen and to allow us to flourish in ways which perhaps before we just even never thought it was possible. So we didn't look that way. So it's that change. And, going back to the pandemic, in some ways, while the suffering has been horrible and so many deaths, and I've lost my mom and many people have lost others, it has brought forth change in certain ways. I mean, being able to be here in a practical way and communicate with folks around the world and take it for granted. Technologies like Zoom existed prior to the pandemic, but perhaps we did not appreciate the intimacy that one could have until the pandemic, and the ability to be able to reach out and tell someone I love them and be heard and be seen in a meaningful way. That is stuff we maybe took for granted, but we just didn't do. And so there's a lot of things. The future of work was accelerated. I believe that post-pandemic, for people who have been holding back or were not able to travel, I think you will see people traveling with intention for vacation and for fun. And we're already seeing a shift of less business travel, even when people are able to travel, that they're reprioritizing their lives and reprioritizing what's important. I think that there's been an awakening for people to live in the state of now, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but to be present in the moment. I think there's a better understanding of what that's all about. And I'll just call it nowism, but being present matters, and being able to appreciate each moment, because each moment is that precious. That matters too. And I think the pandemic has gotten us to that stage too. So while there's been a lot of tremendous, disproportionate, crazy amount of pain and suffering and pain throughout everywhere, we are also learning, and we have benefited from horrible things. And I don't wish pain and suffering on anyone. I wish everything would stop today at this very second. I just do. And at the same time, I just know that I'm different because of this. I spent 24 years traveling almost every week to places around the world. No exaggeration. I mean, and to go from travel.
It's true, everybody. Believe him, it's true. I used to rib him about it.
And I went from that to basically being, docile in America since March of 2020, and it's changed how I work. It's changed how I live. It's changed how I think about opportunities, and so it's shifted completely. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. I think that it was a future thing that became present because of that shift, and so I've shifted my mind as a result of that, and I'm forever grateful for that, being able to see those things, because I don't think I would have seen those things had the pandemic not happened. So in that way, it's a gift at some level, even if it's look, I would have been very happy at not have the pandemic and we didn't have to go through any of this. But I think that, maybe it's because I just look for the positive and stuff, and just a re-amplification that when we believe something, we can make that happen. And it goes into almost from karma to like quantum manifestations, that if we allow ourselves the possibility for something to be, that something can be, and we can make that happen.
Well, it all happens in the now, like you were saying. I mean, that's when karma happens. What energy we're putting out now, and to be aware of our thought processes and just the energy. Like, we're taking care of our cat. We're making good karma, right?
Let's hope so. I mean, it's hard. He's at the end stages of his life, and we're trying to make him as comfortable as possible. And of course, when you make karma, you're not doing it to make karma. You're doing it because that's who you are, and this is what this is what you do.
It has to be authentic.
But I think that the pandemic has accelerated karma as well.
That's an interesting theory.
Now, I don't know about you, Sheilaa, but with me, I've worked consciously on this. So like, if I screw up and I think wrong, I hit my head or I drop something.
You get immediate karma.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what John Lennon said about instant karma. I mean, have you thought about stuff like that too?
About it speeding up? I don't think it's speeding up. I think it's always been like this.
Okay.
I think that you drop the chair on your foot, or something happens, or you lose something because you hadn't, whatever it was, you hadn't balanced your attentiveness. So what I get is that we become, for me, we become more aware. We become more aware of who we are. That's why people who are being just absolutely horrid out there in the world, they weren't maybe last year or the year before, but they didn't really reach. That's one of the things I think this so-called isolation has done, is you've had to meet yourself, and you realize what your value system is. Not you pretending to agree with the world out there, but this is it. So enough people have gotten together and realized, you know what, we're real assholes. Let's handle it that way. And then you have enough other people who realize, oh my God, I'm going to have to come out of being whatever I was pretending to be and to do something, because otherwise the real assholes are going to take over. So
I love
everybody
that.
is coming to themselves.
This is good.
Asshole awareness.
That's
Asshole
that's the end.
AA,
That's
it's a new group.
asshole awareness. I love it. I want the T-shirt.
But also, I
Yeah.
think where the more aware you become of karma or synchronicity, the more it happens, the more you see it. I mean, that's
Yes.
it. And when we
Mhm.
see synchronicities happening all around, which is great. I mean, that's fun too.
It is, but I always come back to, I do think that all this is for a reason. I mean, here in America, I know our audience is international, but here in America, our nation's chart is going through its Pluto return. It'll
What do
be
you think Pluto has a lot to do with karma?
Pluto has a lot to do with endings and ends of an empire. When no empire survives its Pluto return without transforming. So the United States is being called upon to transform. And maybe it's asshole awareness.
Well, that's a part of it. You have to know what all the parts are. You have to be honest about what all the parts are so that you can choose whether or not you're going to use those parts. And if you choose to use them, how much of them you're going to use. You can't just lay all of the parts out on the table and say, I don't want this to be a nut. I want it to be a bolt, because that's not how it works.
Well, I agree. And I think that part of America's Pluto return is that America has to finally be America, because it started off as a promise. And now it's time for promises kept. And I think that should be the central organizing principle of the American Revolution, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, whether you like the way the other person has life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness or not, and stop your bullshit also at the same time.
Well, I think a lot of the outrage or blame or complaining, I mean, the way I handle that is I know that person's going to get their karma, or, you know, we don't have to try to be the righteous, you know, and tell them what's right or wrong, because that person has to come to it themselves. We can only take care of ourselves and change ourselves, but that spreads, right? The more together we are, the more that energy goes out into the world.
As long as they don't come to your door and try and change you.
Well, yeah, you have a few religious groups who will knock, but you have the option to whether or not you're going to open the door.
That's
Right, but I'm
You
also
still have, yes.
I'm also thinking of the police coming to your house and knocking.
Oh, them? Well, no, yeah, your options are a little narrower there.
Well,
So-
actually, you do not have to open the door to them. You have to talk to them, but you don't have to open the door necessarily.
Says the son of a policeman.
This is true. Well, as I've said many times, my father said the only thing that's really illegal is getting caught, and that's why you have so many criminals in the world. Because
Well, you're talking about the truth is going to come out.
yes,
You know, because there's so much illusion of lies and hypocrisy now. So that would be a wonderful thing, right? To have
And
more.
that's also Pluto and Capricorn, because you can't lie. I mean, what if there is a lie? It's going to be revealed.
That's right.
Yes. And Capricorn rules the skeletal system, the structure.
yes.
So everything is just, we're seeing all the way through to the bone.
Yeah.
Like we're
Yeah.
under this giant X-ray,
Yeah.
and we're seeing all the way through to the bone, and we're seeing what things are, what they're made of, their
Yeah.
strengths and their weaknesses.
Yeah, but the thing, Sheila, that I see is that before Pluto leaves Capricorn, you know, right now everybody is reporting on what is wrong and what's going on, and I think there's going to be some people that are actually going to be doing stuff. Like Jeffrey has predicted the future, but he's actually created it by
Yes.
doing things about it. I think that there are people that are, I mean, right now there's a lot of politicians who are doing these unauthorized, illegal power grabs.
Aquarians don't like that.
No, and the Saturn Uranus square is going to bring them low. The Uranus don't play like that.
Well, and I'm noticing too that even though I agree with you, I'm seeing that people think they're getting away with things,
Yeah.
and they're not. I'm really watching how the evidence is stacking up against these people. I'm going, I'm seeing how people are not seeing it, but like anything else, once the scales are tipped so much, you have to pay attention. And we're just about at that point. And so, as you were saying earlier, Monty, that you think that this eclipse, the total solar new moon eclipse in Sagittarius is going to shift everything. I think you have a point, because there's an expansion of awareness,
Yes.
and we will have to look.
So that's on December 4th, everybody.
December
So what do you
4th.
think? What would be a good affirmation or ritual for that eclipse that would help us deal with the energy?
For me, I can see clearly now.
Love it.
That's great.
Great
Mhm.
song.
Great song.
Yes, it is a great song. Yes,
No,
but that's what comes to me is I can see
Clarity.
clearly now.
Yes, we
Yes.
want the clarity. We want to see through the bullshit.
I love that using songs to explain an age or a situation. Like I think about the Leo Aquarius polarity that we're living through. You know, the next 2,000 years is the Aquarian Leo polarity. Everybody is a star.
Oh yes, you're right.
I think of that
Mhm.
song because,
Yes.
I mean, first of all, it's Sly, so
Genius.
genius for sure. But it's true. Everybody is a star. That's because everybody is Aquarius, and star is Leo. Leo's.
Yes.
Any
Or
Leo's
here's
in,
another affirmation Shem shared. Truth will set you free for the
Yeah.
eclipse.
I love
That's
it.
a good one.
Truth will set you free. Yes.
and for everybody, you know, astrology is 5,000 years of observation, and solar eclipses usually will end up with reversals. So people who think they're getting away with shit usually find out that it gets revealed after an eclipse.
You mean like as in karma?
Yes.
Yes, like as in car. Wow, what a concept. Yes.
No, but I mean, Jeff, you set up. You're the reason Vonage and all the phones over the internet exists, and now Ericsson bought Vonage. How long ago was that you set up Vonage and voice over the internet?
Well, going back in time, back in 1995, I had an idea while working on Wall Street about, and I just literally as a ham radio operator growing up, one of the things I really enjoyed was doing something called phone patches, and that's, if you remember MASH in Radio O'Reilly doing the phone patches during the Korean War. I just enjoyed connecting a radio and a telephone together and enabling people to talk to friends overseas. And when I discovered that we can talk on the internet, albeit not reliably, I thought, why not take that idea and bring it to the internet? So I did. I didn't ask for permission. I just made it happen. And if any of you remember Napster, what Free World Dial-Up was a Napster for telephony. It was a first ever free phone network on the internet, and that was back in '95. It actually would have 3 lives,
Jesus.
and it gave birth to a few different companies, including Vonage. In 1998, so that was 95. In 98, I had an idea, and Enron was happening, I guess, about doing bandwidth exchanges, but I had an idea about minutes exchange. I created an exchange because I had worked on Wall Street, where I knew everything could be a market, from air rights to why not just create a futures market for voice over IP minutes. So I did. And in the year 2000, when all these other exchanges were going public, a friend of mine who knew I felt left out said, "Hey, I know somebody." So I speak to a guy who was super interested in what I was doing with the minutes exchange, to creating a marketplace for minutes delivered over the internet. And at the same time, I told him the next big company I wanted to do would be a voice over IP service provider. And during that time frame, I was running a conference called VON, stood for Voice on the Net, or Video on the Net, depending upon what we were doing. But it was about voice and video on the internet. And in about 9 months' time, the Minutes Exchange leadership shifted to a guy who came forward, my friend who made that introduction. This person came forward, invested a lot of money. And he decided, you know what, let's take the Minutes Exchange and let's make that the broadband phone company. So he did. So in the year 2001, Minex became Vonage. Vonage stands for the age of voice on the net. And so
You're like the Werner von Braun of telephony.
Perhaps, or telepathy, depending upon who you're talking to in my family, or at least the assumption thereof. And anyway, so then in 2001, Vonage was born. And it went public in 2006. And last week, Ericsson bought it, the public company, or made an offer to do so, assuming it clears all the regulatory compliance, for $6.2 billion.
Well, and that is how you create the future, everybody. That's how you predict the future and make it happen.
Thank
Well,
you.
you have to be a pioneer.
Right.
Excited.
You can always tell the pioneers they're the ones with the arrows in their back.
it wasn't like I had a big exit or anything last week because when the company was going public in the year 2006, my family who sold at the open, I told my broker, because the company stock opened at 17, and I told my broker sell at 41. And when the price dropped down to 14, my broker calls up and says, "Jeff, you sure you're not dyslexic?" So I sold everything at 14 except 100 shares. And
no. Well, at least you had the idea.
yeah,
sometimes it's hard to be ahead of your time. I wonder what's going on astrologically, because for the spring, we're coming out with something that we started in 1995 also.
Hmm.
do you have a chart for next year or something you want to share for the spring?
You do a chart for what you're asking about. In mundane astrology, you direct the chart with the moment you asked it.
Oh, I was just referring to what Amy's referring to.
I don't even know what she's referring to. We have so many book deals. I'm proofing this one. I'm checking this contract.
Wait, Barrett wants to know, are any good movies going to be made? We need a good movie. All the remakes from movies are from 1995.
Sure,
That's funny.
But wait a minute, Sheila's in California. She would know. You're plugged
Actually,
into
I'm
that.
not in California anymore. I
Oh,
brought
that's true.
California to the Berkshires.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I thought there was a tremor in the force.
I predict
Yes.
more spiritual movies. More spiritual movies.
Well, I'm in talks for my Inspector Tarot
That's
idea.
right.
But we'll see if that actually happens.
Call them on the eclipse.
I'll call him on the eclipse.
There you are.
Now
Call
that
on
mine
the
gets sold,
eclipse.
I'll do
They
a
won't be
little-
able to refuse you.
This is true, and this is somebody I've known since he was an AD, and now he's a big Hollywood producer. So I want to be lied to and robbed by friends. I think it's
There
always
you
Well,
are.
that's a bad affirmation.
Yeah, but
What's the
it's
truth?
also Hollywood. So
That's what I'm saying. I mean, Sheila knows.
Sheila worked in the industry
No,
also.
I mean, if you're going to get hosed, you might as well get hosed by people that you could call
We
on the
can see through
phone.
they will take you out to dinner first, and
Final
this is
thoughts
important.
on karma. Final thoughts on karma. We have 1 minute left.
Oh my God, karma is fun.
We can make it fun.
And if you want to find out more about karma, buy Karma Cards, the best explanation for astrology you'll ever
It's
find.
meeting yourself.
Yes, karma cards. Yes, available in your
Thank
closest
you,
neighborhood
guys.
store.
Hey, Sheila, we could talk to you all
Thank you.
day.
Yes,
Yes,
you're-
it's
You have to
it's
come
hard
back.
to believe that in hours, because it's fun.
it is
So-
fun.
And everybody check out Sheila's website. She has 2 A's on the end of her name, Sheila Hite. And
And
you're-
she's
you're
in
an
the.
awesome reader, an awesome teacher, and you do all kinds of things with astrology and tarot.
I highly advise people to get a reading. Sheila, which state are you in? New York?
I'm in Massachusetts. I'm actually about 20 minutes from New York State, but I'm in the western part of Mass. I'm in the Berkshires.
Are you
Is it
near Peru,
snowy?
Massachusetts?
Am I what?
Near Peru, Massachusetts.
Maybe. I have no idea. I've seen it's written somewhere down that Peru is in Massachusetts,
In Western.
but I don't know.
Well, I tell you, at some point we all have to get together. Maybe at
Yeah.
some point.
Well, we're
Yeah.
actually just a few hours away from each other, so it can be done.
It's true. And my car does not have electric fence, where you get a certain distance from our house and it shocks everybody
Yes,
in the car.
exactly.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you,
everybody
Susan,
who joined us.
Michelle Marie,
Thank you, Monty. Because if it's Monday, it's time for.
ask the Oracle.
Great. Thank
We
you.
lost the thumb on
Thank
that.
you for inviting me.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's so much fun.
Okay. Lots of